Welcome to Season 9 of the Life Giver Podcast, a place for honest conversation about you, your relationships, and the leader you're meant to be to those around you. I'm your host, Corey Weathers. I'm a wife, mom, licensed professional counselor, and many other things. But today, I'm here to breathe life back into you. As per usual in this season, coming out with random episodes as life permits. And I am so excited to share an interview. I haven't really done any interviews this season, mainly just because a lot of reasons. One, because I feel like the world has been chaos and wanting to keep it calm. And also because I think I have been practicing measuring my words. And I just kind of felt the need to just slow things down a little bit. But I am really excited to have my good friend and colleague and now author, Lindsay Swoboda, joining us because I think that the message of her book that she is launching this week, it came out last Tuesday, Holding On and Letting Go, is everything that life has been and is and will be. I know for me and also for so many of you guys listening. So I'm really, really excited to bring you Lindsay Swoboda. Lindsay, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad to have you, my friend.
Hello. Thank you for having me. It is a surreal moment to be back chatting with you. I don't know if you remember this, but years and years and years ago, well, there's several things. I shared a story when you were doing like life giver stories. And I remember sitting on my living room floor. It was a bright red carpet in Morocco. You know, we just got whatever the embassy carpet was, and speaking with you about, reconnecting with my marriage and our relationship at that time. And I remember you said to me, like, Lindsay, you're such a storyteller. And little did you know, there are so many ways you've been the catalyst to help me work through my own story and then want to share it with others. So thank you for all of your words and work. It has inspired my own.
Oh my goodness. Well, you have equally been inspiring for me in so many, and that's what I love when we talk about strengths, and you and I have talked about strengths before. I love seeing the talent of other people, especially when it's different from mine. And of course, I'm a Gallup strengths nerd. So 1 in 78 billionth chance that you're going to have someone else is going to have your strengths in the order that you have them. And so it is a reminder that we're all unique. But when I meet somebody who's just different from me and has these strengths that are different from me, I'm just fascinated. And you are one of those people that is such a creative. And I would see you and the way that you parented your kids, the creativity that you would handle such delicate, but also difficult and stressful moments with your kids, the way that you would turn an opportunity for learning into just a creative space for talking and teaching your kids has just always been inspiring. So you are not only a storyteller, you really are a master creative. And so I feel like I met you officially with the launch of Sacred Spaces, where if any of you remember, I was doing during the launch of Sacred Spaces bracelets that had bracelet challenges where you would commit to like 2 weeks of like work on something in your marriage while you read the book. And Lindsay wrote and reached out to me and said that she had committed to doing this challenge that she'd created for herself for an entire year, and then made this beautiful video of just what she learned in a year of focusing and being intentional. And so you really just stood out to me as somebody who really just was committed to trying to do life and relationships well, but also that you weren't afraid of a challenge. And I'm just really, really proud of you. I've seen you writing over the years. I've read parts of what you've done over the years. I've even seen you work with writing groups and teaching spouses on how to write. And so here you are, you've just launched your book. So I'm going to turn it to you for a second. Why don't you share with everybody a little bit about your journey? Because I know some people, at least I have people that ask me like either what is it like to be an author? What was that process like? It's not an easy process is what I share with most people. So share a little bit about your journey to get here.
Sure. I think this is a great story to share, mainly because I think our big dreams everyone has heard like, oh, you only see the highlight reel. And this is true, right? Like we get to see the big thing come out, but we don't always know the heart, the work, the blood, sweat, tears that went behind it. We know that it exists, but I've tried to be really transparent, especially in the military community with other spouses when they're asking me like, oh, you did this thing alongside military life. And you're like, yes, but
Yeah.
here's how it happened and why it fell the way it did. So, not to go too far back in our story, but I was a professional dancer for years and years. I taught across many of the bases we were stationed at and opened different programs, and that has really informed my storytelling because I think at first the work was not generative for me. It was very much like I'm a piece of this performance puzzle. I'm part of the team, and I am also a tool to be used in someone else's vision when you're an actress or a dancer or an actor or a dancer, right? So you are learning the lines, and your job is perfection to put up the show and then make it as consistent as possible. And I'm saying, like, when you become that person that is hired for the 9 to 12-month contract, like that is your job to be the best, cat and cats you can be and hit your mark as many times as possible and to keep it the same. That's what you're getting paid for, to make the magic over and over again, but to see it with new eyes and for that audience. And so that's really informed like the creative process for me. And I was teaching all along until I had my first child. We were stationed in Hawaii. My husband, Ryan, was in a really heavy deployment season. And I had never realized up until having her that getting an after school hour care babysitter was going to be quite the challenge. You talk about like childcare in general is tricky, and yet trying to get someone from like 4 to 9:30 p.m. really hard. So the first journey back into writing for me was when Ryan got back from his second deployment that he was on in Hawaii. Maybe it was after the first. Timelines don't matter. He sent me to New York City, which is where my best friend was living at the time. I had spent quite a bit of time in New York. It's kind of woven throughout my story. And being back in the city after 7 months of being with our daughter, being the solo parent, I was like, wow, I have missed creating. I need something. And I think dance, although I love it, I'm okay letting it go right now. I don't know if the fight is worth it for me to continue this. We were about to move. We didn't know where. I mean, insert all the military like caveats of the unknown question mark, ... that we all experience. So walking those streets, I was like, but I do need something for myself here. Like I'm missing doing something. So I came back and I told him that. He was like, well, you used to like writing, you write all the time in a journal. What if you do something else with that? So as many young writers do, I opened a blog in the land of blogs and did that for many, many years, writing about things that, goodness me, I thought I was just really wise about. And, looking back, you're like, oh no, you were just doing what you could with the information you had. But in that process, and while we continued to move, that was the space I carved for myself, was writing. And then I decided, well, I wonder what it is to write essays. And my Gallup strength number 1 is a learner. So of course I was geeking out on like every writing workshop, writing book, all the things. It just really fed my off time, right? So that's where it began for me. But the true book process didn't start probably until we were stationed in Ecuador. And I thought, after writing so many essays and things were getting received, that's the other part. Like the feedback was good. You're like, oh, I think I have something here, but do I have a whole book? Mm-hmm. So that was 7 years ago from today. And I worked with a writing mentor named Callie Fayan, and she walked me through kind of the start of what it would be like to create a book. And she was very generous in her feedback. She read things that I sent in. She had me do these mapping, and I really thought the book was going to be about home. Mm-hmm. Ha ha ha. I don't know much about home as a physical place because of moving. I mean, I lived one place for 18 years, and after that, I have moved ever since. And so home to me is actually more of a third culture kid perspective, where I see people and relationships and stories more as home than a physical place. And yet that can be a really wonderful thing to share. So once I kind of flip-flopped that and started working on the book from that angle, things started to become more clear. And yet we got pregnant again, and segue into we arrived back in America after almost 10 years overseas, and it's COVID.
Mhm.
And I specifically remember thinking about sending the manuscript in to the publisher that I wanted to pitch and calling Ryan, who was still back in Ecuador, and saying, I feel really bad about this, but am I being a chicken? Like, I really count on him to know my capacity sometimes more than I do. And not even as like a halt who goes there. He's also the person that pushes me when I don't think I can. And this time he was like, hey, I think you're right. I think maybe the book won't get the attention it needs if you do it at this time. And I think you need to trust that something will come along and you will be okay. And this project will be better off if you just wait. And that was a huge relief. I remember I was like, okay, I'm grieving that I'm not
If I
going to
can just
do
interrupt you,
this.
if I can just
Yeah,
interrupt you
go
for a
ahead.
second, because I was not prepared for you to say that was a relief. Because I think
Mm,
most people would say that they've worked on something, they've dreamed about something for so long, and then you have this opportunity, and maybe it's just fear and insecurity. And yet you say you felt relieved. So share more about that.
yeah, the reason I felt relieved is because we had waited a really long time to have this second child.
Yeah.
Because we were on overseas orders. That's complicated, and I don't want to say it wrong to those that are listening, but part of it was our choice, and part of it was also the knowledge that I had been a high risk pregnancy with my first, and there was the possibility of that being with the second. So we were like, there, I'll probably get sent back to America and do potentially this pregnancy without Ryan, which I had already done the first time. And that was just an experience that if we could not have to repeat it, we didn't want to. So the relief came from I've waited all this time um, to welcome someone new in. And I don't know if I want it to overlap with this dream of writing a book because I don't know what that takes yet. But as this was my second child, I felt a little more. I mean, he has been a totally different experience than my first. But I also feel I knew that the relief part came from it is okay to set one dream aside so another can breathe. And that's what I wanted. And that's not the answer for everyone, but it was the answer for me. Like, was there grief alongside that relief? Certainly, it's hard to set something down. But I also felt like I was pushing for momentum. I was afraid to lose the momentum on the project. And I was afraid that I'd never would pick it back up again. But I just had to trust fall that it would be okay that it wasn't right then. And I'm glad. So that is where that relief comes from.
Yeah. You know, first of all, the book is phenomenal. And it's not just because I know you and have known you and have seen you go through the ups and downs of life and Oconus and coming home and having kids and all the stuff. It is, I grew up in music, in drama. So you and I kind of bonded a little bit on that, with that background, initially. And I know that what I find a joy in music and in drama and the creative side is that storytelling. But it's also, I always think about in music, there is a buildup of tension and then there's a release. And if there's a release, then it brings the story along, right? Like we all hate that life brings such struggle, or interruption, or you just described this momentum going, and then suddenly like something changes that and you felt relief, right? And as much as we hate going through that process again and again and again and again in so many different ways, whether it's parenting or your career or, where you choose to not choose, but where you're sent to live, right? Um, that is what makes an amazing story. It's what makes an amazing play. It's what makes an amazing song. And you being that creative, that's the best way I know how to describe your book, which is it is authentic. It is so much of your story, but I mean, I was tearing up at moments. I was laughing at other moments, laughing in what I call knowing laughter. Like I know what that feels like. I am laughing because I have been through that and I know exactly what she's saying. And just also like the sweetest moments too that make your heart drop. And that to me is what it means to do life and live it well and live it alongside someone else. And so I want us to talk and dive into the book a little bit more, but I just want to say that is how I would describe this book. It is, let me just say the whole title here, Holding On and Letting Go, A Life in Motion, which I realized a few minutes ago, so much of this season is on extremes. It's on the spectrum of extremes of how do you go down the messy middle, knowing that you may need to simultaneously set boundaries, but also extend grace? How do you find the truth on both sides? And your title of your book is exactly that, is like, how do you hold on to the right things and let go of other things too at the same time? And it's so much about what life is, living in the messy middle. So why don't you share with everybody a little bit about your vision of the book and how you would describe the book and how you got to that title? Because you and I kind of even wrestled through on the title a little bit too. I remember that. And yet when you told me what the title was, it's perfect. It's perfect. So share a little bit about your vision of the book and also how you would describe it. It's a memoir, right?
Yes, it is a memoir. I will go with the title first, and we can fully credit that to Terry Barnes.
I love Terry.
We both got to have as an editor at one point, and she's also the catalyst for this story. When I told you I hung up the book, right, and was like, I'm done with this for now. An email came the next day from Terry Barnes, and she was like, "Hey, they didn't know I wanted to send in a book manuscript, nothing. She just was like, I've been watching your writing online. I'd love if you would come write some pieces over here." So I think that's another interesting point, is like when you close a door for yourself, sometimes the little window cracks open. And that was just enough to so in that process, I was writing for Elvarisa, the publisher, at the same time that I wanted to submit this book to them, but just didn't do it until 2 years later. So the title is fully accredited to Terry, really, because I could not think of a title. I thought it was very kind that when I first pitched the book, it was pitched with the title Squeezing Lemons, because I just was like, oh, this will be so good. Like the cover, I can see the marketing with this, like lemonade, like we're making lemonade. And then they wrote me back and they were like, that is nice. However, what you've done here is not a one-step process. They were like, Lindsay, you need to think about lemonade as a recipe you follow, and you follow certain steps and you make a product at the end. They were like, what you did in your story is very full of nuance, and it dances on the page, and it's very lyrical, which is like such a beautiful thing to hear as an author. But then you're also like, well, what? I don't have any more words for you. That was what I thought the title was. Now what? Even like the beginning chapter had something about lemons in it, and that's not in there anymore. So really, we went back and forth, and I kind of threw my hands up and was like, I just don't know, guys. I really don't know. And it was Terry that came back and said, listen, what you are doing in every single chapter in this book is holding on and letting go to something. And she was like, that's what you're doing. And as soon as she said that, I was like, oh, yes, that is what's happening here. I do love that. I feel like can resonate. And okay, moving on. So that was the brilliant part of working with others, right? Like sometimes we can only get a project so far on our own, and we really need others around us to see the work for what it is and to help you figure out what's going to resonate, not just with you, but with the audience that's going to receive it. So my vision for the book really was to write a book that I wanted to have as a spouse and as a sojourner across the world, which is just this permission almost to understand that we can feel a myriad of things. And we can have chapters where we are railing against just everything, ourselves, the world at large, our deepest relationships, and yet know that we can build awareness and fight through them. It's not a how-to book. And I was very specific to really try to make it not a prescriptive, like, oh, if you follow my 10 steps to military life success, you're going to make it through this. No, the thread really that kicked it off was thinking about that child's book, Going on a Bear Hunt. And if you haven't read that book, the children are looking for this bear, and they are having to come across all these obstacles. and like the long, tall, wavy grass and sticky, sticky mud and a big forest. And they always say, we can't go, I'm going to probably mess it up now, but they say something along the lines of, we can't go over it. We can't go under it. Oh no, we've got to go through it. And that to me was the essence of what we had picked up along the way as a military family, and just as people that I'm a person that gives everything to every place I have. And I made a point to do that. Like I wanted it to be super painful every time we left somewhere, which sounds awful. But then I knew that I had like fully invested and fully loved as deeply as I could again, which is a huge risk. We take that risk every time we move, every time we put ourselves out there, we're taking this giant risk. And yet I always wonder, like, what would happen if we didn't risk? What are we missing? We're missing a lot of life and a lot of opportunity at goodness without that risk. You're also missing the chance at like being hurt. That's true. But I think that was the purpose of the book for me, was to serve the fact that like we have loved and lost across this entire globe. And I'm glad.
You've been such a model of that. You know, things that stand out to me. You say it's not prescriptive, and yet some of the things that I remember, perhaps I remembered as a prescriptive for me, you know, and maybe someone else that reads it is going to pick up on something that you did in your story that will be a prescriptive, a different message for them. And I hope that that's true, because that's how beautifully written it is. And it's, but one of the things that I saw very early on, and I'm going to butcher this, but you made a commitment to, kind of like you said a second ago, as far as like living fully in each place, is you made an intention to find at least one person, which I think is also risky for some, especially those introverts that are listening, that, or if you've moved a lot and moved really frequently. I think that you can get really complacent and to a place where it's just not worth the investment anymore. Right. And so, talk a little bit about that decision. Talk about how that went. You definitely found some wonderful friends that you write about and how meaningful they were to you. But I would love to hear, like, what has that been like in your life to make that intention, and how did that change you or grow you as a person to put yourself out there and risk that every time?
I think one of the reasons that I mean, for one, it's interesting. I just talked to a spouse friend of mine that is quite a bit older than me, and she's in like real deep retirement season. And she was telling me the other day that she was like, I realized in my journey that 80% of my time had been spent with women or with other spouses and friends, and 20% of our time I had spent it with my spouse, because like that particular relationship, the deployment cycle was so high for that family. And while I don't feel like my percentages are the same with my spouse, I do feel like relationships outside of my marriage have been super rich everywhere we've gone, because he hasn't always been available. He has had like the mission in mind, or just physically not even been around. So I'd say like there's a line in the book where I say like these relationships buoy me up and I rise and fall on them. And I believe that is true for me, because loneliness is a real factor to military life, and not feeling like seen and known by people greatly affects how we can come to the table, and greatly affects our feelings about a place we're even in. Like you can be in the most beautiful places in the world, and sometimes we're lucky enough to be stationed in those. But if the people aren't there, or we haven't made the relationship with one other person that can like laugh. I call them leftover friends. They're the people that like when you show up to the door, they're going to dig around in your fridge and like they know where the bathroom is and you're not cleaning up for them to come over. Those are the dearest kinds of friendships for me to have, are the ones without pretense, right? That come into your life and you're just like, you are welcome here in whatever stage you arrive today. There's something really special about that. So to find those friends, I went about that. I am extroverted. That helps me. But I also know in my mind, my mom would always repeat to me every time I moved, she's like, Lindsay, you just need one. You just need one. So instead of trying to cast the net really, really wide and catch all these people that I might just have an acquaintance with, I really tried to seek the one person that could come over and be like scruffy hair and coffee together and kids running around at our feet and, taking each other's trash out. Like that is the kind of friendship I want. And also, I would share that if you're the person that's looking for that, to keep yourself open to those in need of connection that you might not be the best fit for.
Say more on that.
Yes. So there's a chapter in the book where I was meeting my dear friend now, Kaylin. However, she came to Korea about 4 months before we were leaving. And I specifically remember being like invited to a coffee with her. She'd invited me and I came home and told Ryan, I was like, I don't need to go to this coffee. I mean, I was being a real stink about it. Like, I'll be honest, but I'm sharing that because I think we've all had that stink moment of like, I'm tired, I'm moving. What is the point of any of this? And Ryan looked at me that day and he was like, maybe the coffee isn't for you. He was like, you're already plugged in here. You could give her the gift of these groups of people, and help her get connected before you go. Like that is a great way to try to stay present here. And so I met her and we had a great coffee together and helped her get plugged in and all the things. And then of course, 18 months later, who moves to Hawaii after me? Kaylin and her family. And now she is the person that I get on the plane for. I mean, I think that's another part of friendship we can discuss in a minute, but our families are deeply tied to one another. Our kids play Pokemon together over the weekend with FaceTime on. It's one of my child's oldest friends now that they actually have grown up together from baby to they're both now 10. And that is something hard to give our kids. And that's something hard for us to maintain as families. So you might come across to Kaylin, where you get to keep them. There's others that you're going to make friends with at different posts, and you just have to love each other as hard as you can for that season and realize you might not have another season together. And can you be okay with that?
Well, and I feel like we've lost the art of this. Like, I think so much being online and a good thing where we have experienced so many affinity groups and opportunities to get involved in your communities or really circle the wagons and invest in your own family and not depend on others quite so much. And now Amazon can send you groceries or Walmart can send you groceries instead of asking your neighbor to pick up a gallon of milk for you when they're going to the store, so things have made it really easier for us to isolate ourselves more than ever. And so while I study and am seeing that Gen Z is the loneliest generation to date, and I do think about our brand new military families coming in and what their loneliness looks like, I think everyone is lonely right now. I think everyone, it's post-COVID, is struggling with the energy that it costs to do relationships. It's harder to leave the house. It's harder to try than it used to be in the past when it really was like you didn't have a choice. You desperately needed that friend next door. And so it's taking more intentionality than ever. And so I love the fact that you're reminding us with this lesson of we need this. It's worth the energy. It's worth the intention. And it's also worth not being too picky about it either. That you really have to think about human connection and the need for each other, and that you find these things in common, and you never know who this person is going to be in your life, and to not make assumptions too quickly. At least that's what I hear part of what you're saying.
Yeah, I would say it's really being open to making the friend even for a short amount of time. I mean, that's what we deeply want as military families, I think, is for people to invest in us, to say, we're here and I know we have a timeline, but I'm still worth loving. And I'll be honest, I've struggled with that even coming here to where it could be like our last little bit for a while. I mean, Ryan is retiring officially in September, and now this military spouse came into my life last year. They're only here for a year. And I had a moment where I was like, ugh, only a year, and you know what? She has been like my biggest book cheerleader. Like she was sent to me for this season because this story is one she is still living
Mm.
currently and needed. And we have had the best conversations. Our kids are great friends, and I'm going to love her until the end. I don't know what our relationship will look like after this, only that, like, will she be someone I continue to check in with? Yes. Right. Like, is she
Yeah.
someone that I'm going to check on her photos and wonder how she's doing? Do I already have like plans for her gift before she leaves? All of the above, because loving her and her family while they are here is also something I'm teaching my children. I don't want them to lock people out in fear of losing them.
Mm.
We are going to lose and gain our whole life. And I think you don't get better at it. You just get more honest with yourself that the loss and gain is worth something to you to keep doing it big.
Mm. So good. Let's talk about what you just brought up, which is your family going through another big transition at the same time that you're launching this book. Is your husband retiring, and all the ups and downs and emotions and decisions that come with that. And so, talk a little bit about this change of season. And I'm kind of curious. I've not asked you this before, so I'm kind of curious as you have finalized this book, which, just really quick, I just want to go back to what we talked about, having a team. I know I get asked all the time about self-published or publishing, and it is always harder to invite other people. To your last point, it is always harder to invite people into your life with something so vulnerable and ask them to shape it with you. And it is excruciating, but what comes from it is so much more beautiful than you could have done on your own. And so I hope you feel the same way about that. But I mean, like, it's kind of like the title that you just described, and how your first chapter started with lemons, and now it's the book about the bear, which I think is so beautiful. And that comes with working with other people. But I'm really curious, you're finalizing the message of this book, you're getting to those final edits, you're about to launch this very vulnerable memoir of yours out into the world. And it's all about this crazy lifestyle and not having any control, and trying to figure out how to do it well, and focus on the things that really matter. And yet you're also going through retirement season. So I'm curious if anything that you learned from the book and writing the book and the messages of the book have helped sustain you through some of this transition season.
I would say absolutely. I would say um, we can't look at our military life and say everything I lived here is going to inform me for what the future is. Because I think that's almost closing off the door to what we may be open to learning next. And so I can say that, do I know what's important to me? Yes, absolutely. I know that we're fighting for our family. We're still working on our marriage every day. I am still trying to get clear on what I want to do next. All of those things still exist in the book, as they exist now. Like, one of the hardest parts was, like, ending the book, as you know, from your first from Sacred Spaces. Like, you're still living this story that you're, like,
Yeah.
finishing for the reader to pick up, but your life is still going in a memoir, let's hope, right? Like, okay, we're finishing this, but I'm still living. And I did kind of have an ending where, it was like, well, how do I end this? Like, I don't want to tie this in a neat bow, because we're still going to struggle with all of these same things. And I would say that's true, but I would also say that, like, what I have learned from the process of the book is the work that takes us a really long time. We have to decide if it's worth it or not for us. For me, it was worth it to take 7 years to complete this thing, in and out of moving and surgeries and babies and TDYs and everything else, because it taught me that I could, in fact, keep going
Yeah.
on something, even if it meant taking a really unglamorously long time to do it. And perhaps that is the next phase of this life chapter for us, is it might take us an unglamorously long time to figure out what we want to do next as a family. Like, not all of that is clear for us right now, but I know who we want to do it with. And to me, that feels important and significant.
What has been the most challenging part of you closing out your time as an active duty spouse? So, I mean, so often we hear the service member is transitioning and they have their feelings and their emotions, and that is true. I find that when I work with couples, the spouse has some significant, opinions and feelings about it as well. And sometimes they're different from the service member. So, what is this like for you to close out such an interesting and complicated season of your life? Because I mean, here, our family, we have never had any OCONUS assignment. And yet you spent 10 years back to back, like overseas. When you described coming home to Virginia around COVID and having another child, that was not just you coming back to the States. You were coming back to the States to have a child during COVID. That's how you were welcomed back in the States after being gone for so long. So you had a very unique journey. So what are your feelings as you close out this time?
It's a big question, Corey. I don't know if I have all of my feelings sorted. But I'll give you what I know so far. And what I know so far is the question has been for us, like, well, are you guys going to continue to serve this community? And you and I have talked over time about how the book was kind of like in phases, like phase 1, finish the thing, phase 2, launch the thing, phase 3, what? And for me right now, phase 3 feels like after you launch a book, it's an offering for a reader to find what they may in your story. And phase 3 for me looks like people have asked us, are you going to continue serving your community? And at this point, my answer is yes. Like, I want to serve the community with this piece of art I was able to release into the world. And also understand that maybe I can serve differently than I could have ever served as an active duty spouse. We ask a lot of those that are in service to also serve when we are fatigued, exhausted. Maybe we can't pick up the extra thing at that moment in time. Maybe it's not the wisest for us. And so to get to champion the community now in a different way where we're off of the treadmill for the moment feels authentic to me. That feels like something I can give in a different way and that I'm excited by. My own feelings around being done are wave tops constantly right now. I cried folding green t-shirts the other day because I was like, what is this? And my husband's a Marine, so sun's out, guns out, you guys. We have rolled, the sleeves are rolled. He came out with the rolled, and I was like, is this my last rolled sleeve season? I am sad. I just makes me feel quite sad. So I'm just trying to greet the feelings as they come, as generously and as gently as I can. There have been quite a few things that both of us are dealing with separately that we kind of look at each other and go whoa, that's not resolved. What's that? I don't know. Do we have time to look at that right now? Maybe not. Maybe later. While we are just as kind as we can be. But it has been just a wild adventure. And Ryan did get to have his retirement ceremony early because his CO is leaving. And of course, all the Marines were really close to our PCSing this summer. And I at first was like, what do you mean you're retiring? And we're having a ceremony in May and you don't get out until September. That makes no sense to me. I'm still learning things as a military spouse. And once he had explained it all and we had the day, it was a beautiful, beautiful day. His CO said some things about him that we don't get to experience as a family because he has laced up those boots every day and gone into places we can't go. And to hear what he has accomplished and what he means to his group of Marines was wonderful as a family to sit and kind of take that in. And then Ryan gave this farewell speech, which he did a beautiful job at. And I had no idea what he was going to say, but he thanked our whole family and really compared his journey to this road he had been walking, and he finished it with us. And sorry, I'm going to be emotional about this, but looked at me and said, what a beautiful life we have built. And I cannot wait to spend more of it with you and figure out what that means to do more of this alongside of each other. And I can't wait for that too. I'm afraid of it, to be honest. Like, it feels really scary to have him around even more. Like, you want it all these years and then you start hanging around each other and you're like, whoa, how do we do this together? And yet I'm also seeing pieces of both of us start to kind of unwind from this mission we've been on as a family. And I think it's possible. I think it is going to come with ups and downs. I don't want to make it like victory is ours, we're going to be great forever, because it is holding on and letting go. It's our life is still happening. Our things we're contending with are still happening. Our choices are now a different kind of choice because they're more our own. And all of those things are big and scary and wonderful. So that's how I'm feeling, Corey. I don't know if that wraps it up nicely or not. It's complicated.
It always does. And it's honest. And I knew that you'd be able to address it honestly with where you are now. And I don't feel like there's enough raw stories of couples as they navigate the complex feelings of transitioning. And I just want to, put out there, Matt and I are moving this month, PCSing this month. And we are also about to become empty nesters. So we're launching our last kid. And there could not be more changes. I mean, executive orders are introducing changes as well every day. And so your message of how do you hold on to the things that really matter when you are living in a lifestyle that feels like there's so much uncertainty and so much that you don't have control of? I know I have all that to say, you gracefully bring the reader along and validate how hard that really is. And even just you just describing the retirement feelings. Some of these things that we go through in life are just really hard. And sometimes you don't have the wisdom yet. And your message of moving through it, like, how do we just move through it and know that on the other side, we're going to look back and there's going to be some very sweet things, even if all you have is the fact that you persevered through it and you learned something about yourself in the process, which I think is one of the deeper messages that you have for people. So I know I have one of my favorite stories from your book, but I'm curious if you have do you have your own favorite story from the book that really is a sweet one for you? It's hard because it's your life, but
it is my life. Yeah. There's lots of sweet moments in there. And there's also lots of moments we didn't share, right? So I feel like the book was tailored to what the needs, what we really wanted the reader to have. One of the things that I have heard from, she's an acquisitions editor. Her name's Stephanie Duncan Smith. And I love her quote where she said, as an author, you're always trying to cheer on the reader's becoming. Mm-hmm. And so one of my favorite stories in the book is the one where we're getting on the plane from Peru back to Ecuador, and someone asked us, where is home for you? Mm-hmm. And I just really, can I read the last part of it? Should we be spontaneous and add a little snippet here? Hold on, you guys are going to have to let me find it. But I love this part of the story because it was that awakening for me that maybe it was okay that I didn't have this physical place that I was always returning to that felt like home. Maybe it was okay that our life was built on something different. And I think sometimes as a military spouse, I have been searching for someone to give me permission that it is okay that my life did not look a certain way, mm-hmm. and that I didn't handle things maybe the way that I wanted to, but that I could still continue to grow and change and grieve and love and just do all of the things while going through a little bit of a whiplash seasons over and over again. I think there is great permission to say you don't have to have this figured out, to still be living it as best you can. Yeah. All right, let's see if I can find this. Let's see where we want to go from. Okay, so just to give you guys an overview, We were getting on a plane. She said, "Where is home for you?" It was just a woman that was talking to me in an airport. I am that woman now that talks to everyone in the airport. Sorry, if you ever sit next to me on a plane, I am going to want to know about your life story. Put your AirPod in before I get next to you. And then before we had gone on this trip, we had attended a seminar at the embassy called Finding a Place in This World, Third Culture Kids. They had told us we hadn't ruined our children, but that they might not always see home as a place. They may see it more as people. So I'll kick you off here and take you through the end. They have not and may never associate home with a place. We might not either. We have to teach them and ourselves to say goodbye, let go, move on, and start over. I imagine roots again, sliced and transplanted, and wonder if we can learn to settle or if we will forever seek the comfort of change. It's time to board, and Ryan guides us into the line. "Have a good trip," the woman calls to me, smiling and waving. I smile and wave back, but my mind catches on the word trip. We're done with the trip. We're going home. Home to Quito, if home means an 18-month cultural immersion before another set of orders is delivered and we're whisked off to another corner of the globe. I take my seat between Ryan and Evelyn. He is quickly immersed in a crossword puzzle, and I help her set up a movie on her tablet. I close my eyes, and our plane lifts off the ground. Sandwiched between these two people I love, I notice the simplicity of Evelyn's small folded hands in her lap, Ryan tapping the tip of his pen to his lips, and the way we naturally fold in toward each other. After years of transience, our roots have become embedded in the people around us. Our relationships are walking homes where we hold one another gently inside. As I feel the familiar sensation of the plane beginning to level off, taking us from one place to another, I reach under my seat to pull my journal and pen out of my backpack. I click open the black pen and spread stories across the page, scrolling ink across lines. The act itself is comforting, the heft of the book warm on my lap. Whether I chose this sojourner life or it chose me, I have a heart that carries many places and people. They live on in my person, branching out and extending my tendrils. I might never see some of the houses I made into homes ever again, or hug the people who loved me in those places. So perhaps the purpose of these thread-like appendages is that they are meant to stretch out and find a support of their own. They can root as stories, built from the mortar of memories, a growing roof that extends across time and space. Our stories are our homes. We can take them with us.
Lindsay, I can't think of a better way to just wrap up not only what a beautiful writer you are, but what a beautiful person you are and the gift that you are to this community that is not going to end. And so I'm so proud of you. The book is phenomenal. I know that it's available on militaryfamilybooks.com and also on Amazon. Is there anything else that you would suggest to people as far as reaching out, finding the book, or what you hope or would want them to know about?
I think there is an art in seeing our stories as valuable and beautiful, and that in sharing them, you are helping to connect someone else. And whether that is you as a writer or as you as whatever thing you do that is your strength that Corey talks about frequently, it's worth it to find those connections and to keep building each other up. So that's what I would leave them with. And also just a thank you to you for having me.
Oh, it's such a joy. I hope you guys will go out and purchase her book. It really is beautiful. And the cover is beautiful. We didn't talk about that. Also painted by a military spouse. It is gorgeous. So Lindsay, thank you so much for joining me, for breaking up this season of odd episodes with your beautiful wisdom. I so appreciate you, and I so appreciate who you are in this community. You are just a ray of sunshine, and I'm just so grateful for you and for your friendship. So congratulations on the launch of this amazing memoir. Thank you so much for joining me, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Life Giver podcast. Please leave a review, share this episode with your friends, and send me a voice message or connect with me on Substack. You can find out more about me using links in the show notes.